And there's Randy. I see Randy. Helen.
There's Helen.
Did Gordon actually join us?
I see him on the on my GoToMeeting window. He was here.
Yeah, I'm in the process of downloading the Citrix launcher here so we can use the webcam.
Okay, cool. Oh,
Beautiful.
I have to tell you that I'm doing a little experimenting here. I have done one of those elder rites of passage. It's not like giving up your car or moving to a long-term care facility, but what it is getting hearing aids. And so my experiment tonight is I'm doing the hearing aids with the headset, and I'm not real clear that that's not going to be overkill, but we'll see.
we'll figure it out.
Drive that sound straight to your brain.
I think that's right, Leah.
Randy, you know who has a good routine on that is Tim Wegner.
Yeah.
He has a profound need for hearing aids, and he also worked it out beautifully on when we do Google Hangouts for the Archives Tech team.
I see Gordon. How are you, Gordon?
Hi, Helen.
Hi, Gordon. Let's see who else is joining.
Wow, look at all these people.
Cool. All right. I think technologically we're good to go whenever you folks think it's time to go.
Would it be all right if we just do a go around and everybody share one thing from the week that might be somehow connected to this the topic under discussion? And then I was hoping from 6:10 to 6:30 Gordon would walk us through or engage us with Chapter 2, Do You Want to Save the World? Then we have a little break in the middle, and then 6:40 to 7, Leah would walk us through her chapter, New Maps for Lost People. Joe Nelson has Chapter 1, and she wasn't able to be with us tonight.
Sounds good to me.
All right, now let me just ask this question. When you look at the pictures, who's on the far left on your screen?
You are.
Everybody is on my screen because I've got them stacked vertically.
Oh, all right, so that won't work. All right.
But I can tell you that Steve is at the top.
So why?
Gordon, I don't know if you're aware, but you are chewing your nuts over there like a horse. And that's all right. But I expect you to send us all nuts for next week.
They're actually grapes.
So there.
All nuts.
I hope we got that comment recorded.
Yes, we do.
All right, so so ground rules. Probably it's a good idea to mute yourself except when you're speaking, and this is important. When you're not speaking, mute yourself. When you are speaking, it's important to unmute yourself.
You have to remember both of those, huh?
I think so. So we're going to go around. Steve, then Randy, then Helen, then Leah, then Gordon, then myself. Just your name and something that's happened in your world somehow this week that's somehow related to this study.
This is Steve, and I'll start. And one thing that happened to me that is related to this study is I'm trying to duke it out with Amazon about how to get my second copy of this book onto my iPad. But a more interesting thing that happened was the folks in ICA Ukraine want to take up, they want to have a session mid-February on charting. I guess they took inspiration from this group maybe, and I had this very fun session with Svetlana. We tried to chart a paper in Russian, and then we tried to chart a paper in English, a Google Hangout, a Google Translator version of the Russian text. And she charted in Russian, I charted in English. It was very fun.
Wow. Cool. Cool.
I'm done, and I'm going to go on mute here.
Okay, this is Randy. We have an organization in our town called the Samaritan Inn, which is a homeless shelter. And last Saturday evening, they had their annual fundraiser. And I understand, I was not in attendance, that the featured speaker was former President George W. Bush. And I understand that the event was well attended and well received. And when I heard that story, I was reminded of Margaret Wheatley's wisdom that you cannot change the world. And I'm complete.
Helen,
Thank you. Where So Far From Home led me was to read Walk Out and Walk On. As I hadn't read this book, and I understand it's in kind of So Far From Home kind of follows on from that. So I found Walk Out and Walk On, and I'm in the middle of reading that and learning again, relearning the principle of start anywhere and follow it anywhere. Sometimes when we facilitate, we think that we have to find the best place to start, and sometimes just starting and following it is the best thing that we can do for a group. So that's where I got led, and I'm complete.
Leah. Well, I find that this week I needed a map for how to use the tools we're using here. And I spent a great deal of my time trying to figure out what would be best and how to put it together. And I need new maps. I'm convinced I do now. You're next.
All right, this is Gordon. I had a ball this weekend. We've been leading a little insurrection here in Seattle in our HMO, which just before Christmas decided to cancel our senior exercise classes, and generally that would go unchallenged except for screams of outrage and frustration. But I decided to exercise a little community organization methodology. We got our group together, we did a petition, we sent letters, we got to the board, we had a meeting of 100 people who spoke eloquently, and HMO has retreated. The exercise classes are back in being, and I'm enjoying my moment in the spotlight here among my fellow elderly exercisers, and I'm complete.
This is Jim. I've been trying to get my 1998 Subaru repaired, and my wife finally took it to the shop teacher, the auto shop teacher at the high school she substitutes at, and I've been going and going and going, trying to find things online, run and purchase things, all with this book in the background, and it occurred to me that there's a lot of parts of my life that are informative that aren't quite covered in this book. And there's a little quote in my chapter 6, Identity, that we change and adapt not individually but as neighborhoods, meaning with living systems with the things right around them. And our community of practice last Friday was introducing yet another session here in Phoenix that's bringing all the players together to launch yet another campaign to strengthen the neighborhoods of our city. And I'm complete. So I guess the question is anything else? Otherwise, Gordon, are you ready for us to jump in?
This is Dave Rebstock. Are you hearing me?
Dave.
Yes.
Okay.
Hi, David.
I just wanted to check in and say that between cardiac rehab for a stint I had put in a couple of weeks ago and Ellen's physical therapy and getting acclimated to a retirement community that we just joined in December, we've been keeping ourselves pretty busy. Ellen, do you want to say anything?
I'm on the line as well. I'm not sure I've got anything to add. One of my projects this week was responding to an article in the Baltimore Sun about conservation burial grounds. One is proposed for just north of us here, and this is a project that my brother in California is very involved in. So I wrote to all of my county commissioners endorsing this project, and they voted it in today. So, Gordon, I had a little win, too.
Hi, everybody. I am auditing and listening, awaiting the book, and invited a friend of mine to be part of it, Betty Ketchum. And so when our books arrive via the library, we will be more informed. In the meantime, thank you for the charts and the other materials that you've sent so far. And Dick says hi, too.
Right.
David and Ellen, we're experimenting with clicking the little button that lets our camera show our faces. If you have a camera, feel free to go ahead and click it, and then if the whole thing freezes up, we'll all unclick. So we'd like to take the next 20 minutes. Gordon, is it all right for you to go?
Yeah, I think so. This is an experiment, of course. I'm going to ask Helen to do a screen share here.
Wait, I forgot Ellen Howie. Did you want to introduce yourself, Ellen?
Very fine. Very fine. Okay.
Gordon, I just lost everything except everybody's pictures. What does that mean?
That's okay, because I just gave Gordon control, and now he has to click the blue button that says Show My Screen, and then he has control. So watch out, people. We may end up on Pluto.
All right.
This is true, or I may just leave you in limbo there with...
We need a map. We need a map.
So you can see the pictures yet. Okay. I'm going to be working off, as you can see, if you can see my picture, my tablet, which has the book on it. Hopefully you'll have your device or book, and now I'm going to shift to the chart of the chapter 2, and you should be seeing chapter 2, Do You Want to Save the World?
Woohoo! You did it.
Okay. So you might want to look at the text in chapter 2, and we'll talk a little bit about this based on the chart, and then I'll ask a few questions, and we'll take that famous break that we've been promised. So, and this is in the Google Doc session 2, if you want to find it later. But there are 2 parts to chapter 2, Do You Want to Save the World? I just called them What We've Been, What We Can Be. And it's hard. I tried hard this week to see if I could put numbers besides paragraphs on my Kindle device here on my Android tablet, and I wasn't able to figure out a way to do that. So we just have bullets today, but maybe somebody could read that first. Just read the bullets and what we've been. Would somebody do that? Who can unmute and read?
Well, yeah, this is Randy. I'll do that.
Great,
We've been
Randy.
harboring. All right, Randy.
Go ahead, Randy.
Go ahead, Jim.
Courtesy.
I muted first. Your turn.
Go ahead, Randy.
Okay, the bullets are, we've been harboring a hope that if we do good work, it will spread and bring about change. And then you've got something about test questions there. The next bullet is, that's a big false assumption we've made, and leaders are interested in what works.
Actually, that is the big false assumption we've made.
Oh, that's the big false assumption being that we can bring about change if we work good, work hard, right?
No, the big false assumption is that leaders are interested in what works.
I'm with you. I misread it. Thank you for straightening me out on it. The big false assumption is that leaders are interested in what works. And the third bullet is that we must abandon dreams of influencing others through what we do. And finally, the big shift we have to make is from savior to warrior.
Okay, well, those of you who are looking at the text of this first part, or remember it, or just want to bounce off what I put in the chart here, my chart, what's a word or phrase that caught you in some fashion? You can unmute to speak and then mute again.
Harboring.
Leaders are interested in what works.
Okay.
This is Steve. The word that catches me is we. Who is this mysterious entity referred to as we?
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Well, where in this chapter in which Wheatley talks about what it is that marks someone who's been out to save the world, where did you see yourself in any of this? Anything from your dark past or lurid present that resonated with that image and the description she gave of it, of being out to change the world?
Well,
This is Jim. Whenever
Jim, go ahead. We could start doing hands up, I suppose, but
we'll just do Jim and Randy will alternate, and then other people answer. Anytime well, all right. I recently set up a book study with a bunch of people in the hope that it would produce some impact. And I'm complete.
Well, I spent probably 3/4 of my life trying to demonstrate what works. And actually, no one was really interested. I believe I'm complete.
Well, this is Randy. I have a friend that I talk to occasionally, and the impression I get from him is that he is very, very clear that the world is going to hell in a handbasket. He seems to be equally clear that he's the only one who knows that, and he therefore appears to be carrying a great burden on himself that he somehow has to remedy the situation, and chances are he has to do it alone. And I'm complete.
okay. Well, there, it struck me in this first part of the chapter here. Maybe I'm just trained to be skeptical, but the idea that well, her assumption that leaders are really not interested in what works didn't quite work for me. I found myself saying, I think leaders are interested in what works for them at the moment, and perhaps not so much what works from a long-term perspective, especially if it's likely to involve unknown consequences in the process of working. Anyway, there was a certain certitude in what Meg Wheatley was saying that I found a little irritating. But she's putting things out pretty boldly. Go ahead.
And she's ruthless about it. She's unmerciful. She's very direct and leaves no doubt. She says there are mixed reactions. There hasn't been any evidence that anything works. All this effort that we put into it over the years, there's really total mixed reaction of its effectiveness. And we have a world we didn't dream we would have.
This is Jim. Greg Stanton, who's currently the mayor of Phoenix, about 6 or 7 years ago, when he was a city councilman, had a sort of spiritual awakening and realized what a crappy place Phoenix is for a kid to grow up in. So he said, we've got to make Phoenix be the most kid-friendly city in the country within the next 10 years. And then he started getting other people together, rallying them around this. And I was asked to facilitate a couple of the sessions. And after about 3 sessions, somebody pointed out that none of the government people who were in those sessions could actually commit to making Phoenix anything different 10 years from now. If it was past their term of office, they couldn't commit. If they were not political people but staff people, they couldn't commit. Anyway, so the thing sort of petered out after that insight. And I'm complete.
Okay,
This is Randy. All that suggests to me that, I was just going to say, all that suggests to me that that we need a new definition of leadership. I'm complete.
This is Helen, and when I was leafing through this chapter on my iPad, and I came across what I missed the first time. But she says, not to meet aggression with aggression, to consciously choose to stay out of fear and support others to do the same, to quell the anxiety and anger that erupts so reflexively, and choose for peace. Of course it's hard. What isn't these days? I just want to be struggling for the right things. And that resonates with me in terms of always, my grandparents always told me, and my parents always told me, choose your battles carefully, and like struggle for the right things. And when you only have so much time and energy, how do you know what you're doing is, and you're putting your energies into the right place? And then I think back to what's happening now in the Middle East again, that we meet aggression with aggression, and we consciously choose to stay out of fear and support others to do the same. We have to find a new way of doing things if we're going to continue to live on this planet and not blow ourselves up.
Okay.
I'm complete.
Well, let's go to the second part of this, because this is he was talking there about our false assumptions and unjustified hopes and expectations of influencing, and we'll come back to that big shift we have to make, I think. But let's talk about what we can be, because that's what that's leading into. And Jim, why don't, since we cut you off and let Randy read the last one, would you just walk us through what we can be quickly?
The book is about claiming the new role of warrior of the human spirit. Choose for peace, see the world as it is, change it by accepting it, contribute things of eternal importance, how to live together. It matters not where, if history is moving, stop trying to influence it. Products of the two paths. 1, exhaustion and despair. 2, meaning, strength, and contentment. Create meaning together, focusing on the present moment.
Okay. We're going to hear a lot more about the image of the warrior, I think, but these were some of the things that she says in this chapter, that instead of continuing to increase anger and aggression, this allows you to choose for peace, but you have to see the world as it is, in all of its grimness, darkness, so on, and that only by doing that and accepting that can we change it. I'm wondering, where did that idea that you have to accept the world as it is in order to change it, did that connect with anything in our past for you? How did it connect?
My youth group leader and my first through fourth grade teacher, Mr. Wunderlich, emphasized that we should all just try to fit in and not rock the boat.
Well, this is Randy. I think a big piece of our whole history as the Ecumenical Institute, the Order, particularly through the Human Development Project, was that until you can accept the situation that you have, you don't have the slightest possibility of changing it. Somehow you have to affirm the possibility that's in the given situation before you can take any responsibility for changing it. Mm-hmm. I'm complete.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Randy. Anybody else? So I think this is a core idea of Wheatley's, that we've got to say yes to our real world, our real situation, to use Randy's terms, and then only then do we have a chance of occasioning change.
But she doesn't say accept it so that you can change it. She says change it by accepting it. I think we have to be careful here.
Go ahead.
I don't think she's offering change as an option for us to do anything but accept.
I'm kind of aligned with Leah. One of my Buddhist teachers says that people who get preoccupied with changing themselves, talking on the personal level for a moment, there's a subtle kind of dishonoring that's going on there. What she says is, better you should return to your own sense of good-heartedness, your own basic goodness as a human being, and start again from that place, rather than commit a kind of subtle dishonoring of yourself by, saying you broke it and you got to fix it. And I think there's something in that, in these words. The final bullet there speaks more powerfully to me that, maybe from this moment there's an opportunity to take what you have and make it available, have some generosity to share, rather than some kind of tight-ass, the world is going to a hell in the handbasket, in Randy's words, and it's my job to get in front of the wheels as they grind through history.
And
this is Randy. Let me just.
Let's see. Helen, why don't you speak, since we haven't heard from you recently? And then I think there was another female voice I heard.
Okay, I'm just looking through to the chapter again, and I think she reiterates what Steve was just talking about. Is if we fully accept the world as it is and all its harsh realities, then we can develop the very qualities we need to be in that world and not succumb to that harshness. We find our courage, morality, gentleness, non-aggressive actions by clear seeing and acceptance. And as we accept what is, we become people who stand in contrast to what is, freed from the aggression, grasping, and confusion of this time. So I think she supports what Steve was just saying in terms of being true to ourselves and accepting the world as it is one of the ways through, one of the ways of working through this. I'm complete.
Okay.
This is David. You hear me all right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
If I were to ground this in terms of leadership and human development issue or projects that we did, we always knew that the projects weren't going to get done unless the community did it. And when we tried to do it our way, it usually didn't work. In fact, it always didn't work. And accepting that is an important thing, that's the way it is. And for me, that points to leadership being a guide rather than what we classically call a leader. I'm done.
Okay. Well, I thought there was enough merit in what you were saying that I changed the word there, as you may notice, change ourselves by accepting the world as it is. I think that's probably more accurate to what Wheatley's saying. So how about the next bullet? Forget about where history's moving or if it's moving at all, and just stop trying to influence it. It seems to me we talked a lot about trying to understand where the forces of history were at work and where they were moving, and that was kind of important to us. Somebody else.
Well, Gordon, this is Randy. A while ago, what Leah said about I was totally positive about that. I agree with what she said. What I would caution us though on this, particularly in light of a statement like this, of stop trying to influence it. And I don't know, I don't recall the exact wording in the book whether she's talking about stop trying to influence history or stop trying to influence the future. But what I think you have to do is not just take this chapter in the context of the whole book, but you almost have to take this book in the context of, I think Helen said she was reading Walk Out, Walk On, and some other things that Wheatley has done recently within this whole arena. And I think we dare not think that the end result of this is that Margaret Wheatley is going to come out being a pacifist. She is not a passive woman at all. It's just a matter of trying to get some kind of a handle on exactly what it is she thinks she's trying to do and how she's going about it. Just that word. I'm complete.
Okay, thank you, Randy.
I don't know if it's, I kind of looked over my chart to see if I could find it, but she does talk about right work that you sense needs to be done, I guess. But you do that work, and I think she would say, as we would say, you offer it up. You don't judge. There's no judgment in the work itself. The work is innocent of judgment. It's done because it seems right.
Okay.
Makes sense. I'm complete.
Okay. And Jim, you should be dragging us back if we're going over time here. I wasn't quite sure.
You're 2 minutes over.
Thank you. So the products of
Luckily, we've got a 10-minute cushion there in the middle.
Yeah, it is good. Products of the two paths. One, if you are still trying to change the world, the path will lead to exhaustion and despair, and we could probably ground some of that. The warriors of the human spirit, in other words, instead, that path leads to meaning, strength, and contentment, as she puts it in this chapter. And then she talks a little bit about creating meaning together, focusing on the present moment. So obviously there's much more to be said about these. I did, going back to the big shift we have to make from savior to warrior, I tried to come up with a graphic here, and I was tired of male savior images, so I found this rather attractive young woman who's known as the Red Savior as to hold that. And for warrior, this looked to me a little bit like people creating meaning together, focusing on the present moment. So, and then I've left questions here for all of us to brood on, think about. which I won't run through, but you can read those and decide whether you want to say anything to them or not. This is an editable document, as I'm sure you know. The So Far From Home conversation page on Google Docs. And I'm complete, and I will yield my control back to you, Helen, to take over and give us a break, I guess, huh?
Thank you, Gordon. Let me just wrestle it back.
I think we should give Gordon a hand. He did a great job. I'm all stirred up inside myself.
Thank you.
We all did a great job jumping in, I should say.
Oh, I hope I didn't.
Yeah, you did. Okay, well, he's done.
I'm sorry, Gordon.
That was his hand.
Okay, what did you really think of Gordon?
I'm sorry. That's one way to gain
Weakness, ineffectivity, the dark night.
I hope he forgives me for that.
Does he even know he's off?
I'm sure he does. Are we to take our 10-minute break now, Jim?
Well, we sort of took it already, but
Okay.
I think let's switch it to the next chapter, and if anybody needs to step away for a minute, this would be the time. Excuse
Okay.
me.
And I understand Helen is going to maneuver Chapter 3's chart.
There it is. I'm so sorry, Gordon.
I think he thinks all of us left.
Can you see it, Leah? Oh no, I don't have the screen on. Just a second. I'm getting control here, Helen. Figure out what you're doing. Okay. There we go.
How did you get that?
Okay, there we go. Gordon, I am so sorry.
Well, you praised 1 minute and dismissed from the meeting the next. I mean, sort of whiplash experience here.
I'm sorry. Jim says to me, and so that's what you thought of Gordon, eh? Okay. Jim's back, and I have up on the screen Leah's chapter. So take her away, Leah.
Okay. In this chapter, basically what Margaret Wheatley does is she says, this is my format, my layout of this book. And she does this in a very straightforward manner, which she uses the word straightforward several times in this chapter. And she insists that we're in need of new maps for lost people. So in the first part of the chapter, the first 5, what looked like to me the first 5 paragraphs, you'll notice I've numbered paragraphs, and then below it I have the page that the Kindle book refers to is in the book. So if you're using a book, you have a few guidelines along the way. But in the first part of the chapter, the first 5 paragraphs, she's talking about a major image, the map maker, the cartographer. And she likes that as her own self-image. And then she starts using the word we and she uses the image, the explorer. So we are the explorers. She initiates the mapping. And then the next section of the book, 6 through 14, are the types of maps. Actually, 6 through 9 are the types of maps. And then she goes into greater detail of how the chapters fall within these types of maps. Hope, the maps for hope, the maps for the lost people, the maps for being found. And then the very end of the chapter is about, or the book is, a warrior's guide and a parable. Now she throws in those last 2 paragraphs. She wants, and it's almost like a poster, wanted, fearless leaders. No, that's not leaders, that's readers. She wants fearless readers. And she puts a cautionary note there. And she says, if you go back to Hope, which is part 2, and Lost, which is part 3, she says those are very heavy chapters, pretty bleak, and a lot of my readers lose their way here in despair. But she says, hang on. And believe me, at the end, there is clarity, light and clarity. Well, I have a feeling that once we get through the 3 types of maps, home, lost, and found, and each of those has 4 chapters. You're talking about 12 chapters here. You're going to be ready for some light and clarity, I think, when she gets through with us here. It's like she's straining us. She's got these nets, and we have to go through the nets to get to the warrior's guide and the parable. And so that's my quick walkthrough of the chart. Let's go back to the first. When have you found yourself using a map recently? Nobody here uses GPS?
To find my way to the Family Health Center.
Did you use GPS?
I did on my iPhone. It got me there.
All right. Anybody else used a map recently? When have you been in a situation?
My son, this is Jim. My son has a wall-size National Geographic map that's about 7 feet tall and 10 feet wide on the wall of his living room. And whenever people come over, they walk right over and start studying it. It's very interesting. And when my granddaughter from Nicaragua came, she immediately started quizzing her cousins. Do you know where Nicaragua is? Do you know this? Do you know the capital of Russia? So it was interesting to see how much the presence of a map engaged people. And I'm complete.
Anyone else? Your relationship to a map recently?
This is Steve, and I was talking with Wendell Rapier this morning. Some of you know that he and I are working on a database to try to make the archives accessible online. And we were talking about let's say best case, we were able to get Gordon to declare some of his archives available and visible in the database, and maybe somebody in Australia it'd be sort of fun to have a Google map of where various ICA archives or holdings or stashes are, so you can actually see them on a map, and do a little keyword search, sure, and find something like how do you chart in Zimbabwe or somewhere, I don't know. Anyway, we're just having a fun conversation about how you might search using Google Maps of where things are in the archives.
All right.
I'm done.
When do you remember needing a map? I mean, you really needed it. You were lost. I can remember being on a freighter in the Pacific Islands, doing a town meeting out on this high island in the Marshall Islands, and we did the meeting and we came back down to the shore and the freighter wasn't there. We were just on this it was a black night, we were just on this coral shore looking for this freighter. You think you could see a freighter on the horizon, but it was so black and there was no freighter there. Well, the man and woman that we knew from the island, who was a minor king, he said, you can sleep on my screened-in porch. About 22 of us slept on his screened-in porch that night. The next morning we go down to the beach. There is no freighter on the horizon, absolutely nothing. And I'm beginning to think in my head, well, what in the world are we going to do? It's not like a bus is going to come by and pick us up. I felt very lost. I'll make the story short. About 1 o'clock in the day, the freighter floated back. I guess the story was that they had played cards, got drunk, and sort of drifted off the old horizon. Well, we get on the boat. The boat has no rudder, and it cannot go in. It can only go in reverse. And I'm thinking, I know nothing about sailing a freighter, and I got to get us home. I got to get these 25 people home. And I was totally lost. I needed all kinds of maps. Well, obviously I was found. I'm complete, but I know what it means to frantically be lost and wish for the maps. I'm complete. She says we need 3 types of maps. Over in paragraph 7, she says topography, the characteristics and features of the terrain, and that's going to be covered in part 2 of the book. The second set of maps are system maps that have values and behavior patterns and interactions that help us sort that through, because we are in a new world. And she uses over and over the phrase, a new world that we don't want to be in. And the third type of map is a personal map. And that personal map has to do with the requirements for being on the path of the warrior. That's in part 4. Then 10 through 14 is a flip. She repeats, you can't change the world. You stand open to the world as it is. and you develop qualities of gentleness, decency, and bravery. And she does those in the 12 chapters I talked about earlier. Where is it in, as this book is laid out like this, where is it you find yourself most interested in wanting to know what in the world is she going to talk about there?
This is Helen. I'm drawn to the gentleness, decency, and bravery. Interesting. It's number 13. Complete.
This is Randy, Chapter 11, Controlling Complexity. I'm wondering, how in the world do you do that? I'm complete.
Yeah.
Pretty much whenever I encounter my grandchildren and their parents, it dawns on me that their parents are preparing their children for a world they don't understand, and I don't understand at times twice. So almost any time I run into my children or their children or any of their associates, I find myself lost. So I think I'm interested in I'm interested in 11 and 12 and how all those factors play together and whether they begin to make some sense of what's swirling around me. And I'm complete.
There was a question that was early in this chapter that she asked that I think is worth asking now. What happened to that bright new world that seemed so close at hand only a few years ago? Well, when would you say the world, you were aware that the world had changed? Was it 9/11?
Well, there were a lot of times I think we were aware, Leah, that the world had changed. I think, who was it? I guess it was you, David, who was talking about human development projects. But part of the, I think there was a time, and maybe it was as we saw the complexity of trying to do replication, that some of the early confidence went out of us a bit in recognizing that there were a lot of complexities we hadn't factored into our thinking. I'm thinking of the ICA now and the order, but I think there are a series of points along the journey of the history of ICA where things just didn't seem to produce the kind of results we had certainly hoped for, if not anticipated. That would be one, I'll stop with that. I'm done.
Would you say that that was late 70s, early 80s?
Yeah.
Okay. Think beyond the ICA, if you will, for just a moment, to the world at hand. I mean, when did this sort of become clear that the world was different than we had anticipated? It's not what we wanted, and we were
for sure the last 6 years of the Obama administration, where so many whistleblowers have been persecuted, where the Arab Spring blew up and failed, where companies redefined organic to continue making some money, where I would say in some of those areas, I think, to me, I have to think of her speaking to this broad group of people that includes social innovators and facilitators, and speaking to us, because she keeps talking about this global culture. This is not something, she's not speaking of something that's just, well, like today, the news that this young woman from Prescott was killed by ISIS. And as it happens, a close associate of mine, Elise Euler, is over in that part of the world right now working. When the proposals for how the United States could defeat ISIS came out, and they said, we could take a year and we could train some people, and then they could fight them with our help. And you have that on that side, and then on this side you have what seems like a spontaneous uprising and no shortage of skilled fighters. And something quite out of touch. And I'm complete.
Well, she promises.
I have a hard time right now with any kind of facilitation. Something in the last probably 2 years, I slipped down a hole. And, and the idea of putting more pieces of paper up on a sticky wall and getting people to sign up at the last minute to do stuff. It's not like you want to discourage people from doing that if they've got passion for the world. That, and then on the other side, the degree to which facilitators who are successful become successful because they're helping organizations do things better, faster, and cheaper. Your time on this chapter is almost up, Leah.
I was going to say, do you have a way to get us out of this pit?
I don't want to get you out of the pit because that's where I think she wants us to realistically be. I think she says when she reads her own writing, she has to fight despair. And she's taught. Her illustrations of people, Tutu and South Africa and Martin Luther King. I mean, she's talking about a bigger sweep of history than our few years on the planet. And she includes them in this. Well, the call is there for the fearless readers. Would we dare be fearless readers? I think that might be the question. Will we stay the course? I'm complete.
Oh. This time went fast for me. Just each person, one thing you're taking away. I'm taking away Leah's closing point. I don't want to take you out of the pit. That's where she wants us to be. And I'm Jim, and I'm complete.
Ellen, I'm taking away the word acceptance, and I'm complete.
This is Randy. Leah asked the question, when did we first experience that the world had changed? And I didn't know quite how to respond to that. What kept coming back to my mind, and I guess this is what I'll take away, is it's not that the world has changed, but that it's always changing. And I'm complete.
Gordon, and I've been thinking about a lot of history and how we are not as unique probably as we like to think we are in our time. There have been great periods of despair about what was happening to the world, in the world, and then somehow we get thrown back into re-engaging. People have over historical periods. So I'm interested in how Margaret's going to describe that happening again, because I think it's something that's happened many, many times past in history. And
this is Helen. I'm taking away, I think it was the comment that Steve made, is that leadership is a guide. I think I'm taking that away. And the comment about the community needs to do it, it doesn't work if other people do it. And I have to take this back to a facilitation gym, to a group I'm working with, because the city is still trying to do it for the community of interest. And it's not going to work if they continue to push what they feel needs to happen. It's the community has to become, they have to own it somehow. And leadership is not always just pushing things through. Leadership is a guide. So I thank you for that, Steve. I'm going to take that back with me and see how that can help me with that project. And I'm complete.
I'm David. Can you hear me?
We can.
One thing that I found intriguing, and I didn't get to comment about it, was that she has the word in chapter 14, toward the end of the book, the word parable. And I've studied quite a bit on the parables in the Bible, and they're called riddles. And it just intrigues me that she ends up with a word that defines something as a riddle. And I'm anxious to read that. Maybe I'm interpreting it wrong, but it's kind of interesting. And I'm complete.
This is Leah, and I think I'm fascinated by the magic of maps. I'm complete.
This is Steve. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I guess I feel like I'm old enough to have a top 40 or a top 80 list of the kinds of things that were just under discussion. It seems to me what my takeaway is she's describing a continuous, maybe even iterative activity in my life of just coming to terms with being present to what is available in this moment. It's seductive to trap your personal history into a set of categories. Failures, successes, rained out, mixed bag. More interesting to grapple with what's available in this moment. That's all I have.
Anyone else? Well, our time has come to a close. Joe Nelson and I had a conversation and suggested we schedule out 8 sessions and cover 2 chapters a session and use those as sort of a backbone for the study to allow Google Docs or websites or other conversations to take place. Just without a lot of time, does that, is there any big objection or clear alternative to that as a way forward?
8 more?
That'd be 2 chapters a time.
But 8 more sessions.
Yes. And I really think the key to this will be things that happen around those, not just those. But I don't have a picture of of what to do with. There's now 23 people who've expressed interest in participating. Most of whom don't have the book yet. The top network in the U.S. wants me to send a note around to get their people involved in this. Helen, I don't know if have you done anything with IAF colleagues in terms of inviting them?
I have invited IAF colleagues, and my colleagues in Canada are quite busy with our conference that's coming up in Banff in May, and the board colleagues are quite busy with some projects that they're involved in. So I kind of ended up batting zero on, other than Joe was one that I'd sent out to, but other people had said it just wasn't, they were interested, but the timing just wasn't there for them. So I batted zero.
For Gordon and I, this time fits best, 5 p.m. Seattle on Tuesdays, but I don't know that that's true for everyone.
This is Randy. That's a good time for me.
This is Leah. It's fine.
It works for Steve, but I do have a question about how I can claim a chapter, and could I claim it with a partner and present our work as partners rather than a sole provider?
Yes. Just do it and tell me, and I'll get it up on the list.
I was going to say that violates all the rules that we haven't yet formulated, Steve.
Steve, up on the Dropbox, I put up the PowerPoint, and just go in and write your name in on the chapter you want.
And
Exactly what James
is there a way that I can claim an unclaimed and unwashed participant?
So the vast bulk of the 6 billion people in this planet are not signed up for chapters.
Well, I'm not gonna get into the business of herding cats. I don't experience myself as a facilitator these days either. But how actually could I practically acquire a pair partner?
You could either sign up.
Figure that out. If that's your proposal, I think you should figure it out.
All right.
Or invite one of us. You know?
So next time, could we go on to chapters 4 and 5? That would be David Rebstock and Randy Williams.
Why not?
And just leave chapter, I guess we just all be sure we've read chapter 1, huh?
We do have a chart, a nice, clean, beautiful chart for chapter 1 that Joe put up in the Dropbox.
Well, David, can you be ready with your chapter?
I'm almost ready with the chapter and putting the finishing touches on the chart. But we just went up on the Dropbox about 2 hours ago, right before this meeting, and I need some help from either Jim or Gordon over the phone on how to get the charts up on the screen and that sort of thing. But I can do that sometime this week. That's no problem.
All right.
Yeah, I need that help too. This is Randy, but I'll just do it by email. You guys can kind of fill me in.
I think Helen is a great resource. I yelled help and she came.
I'll check in with Joe, and if she's ready, she did want to do something with her chapter, and then we'll just we'll bump you, Randy, if it looks like. Well, we don't have to go in order. That was we can jump around, but I'll see how to get Joe back into the queue, and then between the 3 of you, we'll do 2 next time. All right?
That'll be good. And do we assume? Do I understand we'll have about 20 minutes per chapter?
That's roughly what we did. Yeah, I thought that worked pretty well, didn't you?
I thought so.
Yep. All right, thank you all. We'll post the audio recording, the audio and video recording, beginning with Leah's question. Gordon, do you know you're chewing your nuts?
Please don't use that one.
That should be a good inducement to others to join this.
Or not.
I'm going to go and tweet that right away.
Oh, no, leave it in. We'll have the unexpurgated version. We can sell it, and we'll publish the edited version.
I didn't sign up for editing anything. It's going up as it is.
I'm sorry. I will watch. I'll try to control myself.
That was too cute, and don't you ever try and control yourself, Leah. We love you the way you are.
All right. Thank you all.
We're working on accepting you the way you are, Leah.
Thank you.
With decency, bravery, and what's the other one?
Gentleness.
Gentleness. How about the gentleness?
All right.
All right.
Bye-bye. Take care, everyone.
Thank you all. Good week.
Bye now.
Good night. Good night.
Good
night.
David Rebstock.
Hello, David.
Let
me see if he's still here.
His phone image is gray.
He might have. Oh, Ellen is still there. Hers is green.
Yep.
David's is green on mine. Well, they're gray on mine.
Ellen.
Well, we'll have.
Ellen? Yes, I'm here as well. I was just muted.
Are you hearing us?
Yeah.
We just asked you a question.
We're hearing you now, David.
I got the question. And I answered with